After German reunification, were its problems resolved or exacerbated for Germany itself and Europe? Is Germany always a problem, whether weak or strong? Germany and its relations with others define Europe today. Join me, Jan Darasz, for How We Got Here.
Following the reunification of Germany in October 1990, the Social Democratic Party of Germany broke away from the Socialist Unity Party of Germany, which ruled the German Democratic Republic throughout its entire existence. The SPD merged with its West German counterpart, a force that co-created Germany's political landscape, together with the other big tent grouping, the Christian Democratic Union. Helmut Kohl, the first Chancellor of reunited Germany and the driving force behind the country's reunification, hailed from the conservative CDU, as did Angela Merkel, who would lead Germany for 16 years and 16 days. Made up of social Christians, economic liberals and conservatives, the CDU has made public safety, tradition and frugal spending their leitmotifs, although in the event of Friedrich Merz becoming Germany's next Chancellor, the last element could appear outdated, giving Merz's calls on keeping up military aid to embattled Ukraine. Once reunified, the centre-left SPD continued advocating for a strong welfare state, focusing on blue-collar workers as well as social and economic justice. The SPD's first post-reunification Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder signed a deal between Germany and Russian state-owned Gazprom to build Nord Stream 1, just days before leaving office. Shortly after his departure, he joined the pipeline company's board. The Liberal Capitalist Free Democratic Party's withdrawal from the ruling traffic light coalition this month amidst a spat over the debt brake led to the collapse of Germany's government and proved the FDP's political clout. As it already has done in the past, the FDP is expected to play the role of kingmaker in the wake of snap elections scheduled for February 23rd. Having grown from the 1960s and 1970s protests advocating for environmentalism, women's rights and peace, but also against nuclear power, the Greens would form ruling coalitions with SPD under Schroeder and Scholz, but their popular support has been on the decline since mid-2022. Established in 2013 as a more hardline offshoot of the CDU, the Alternative for Germany has voiced anti-immigration, Eurosceptic and pro-Russian messages since 2015. All the mainstream parties have rendered the AfD untouchable, but the party's rise in popularity and electoral success in East Germany may render coalition building more complex and even paralyze federal governance. On the far left end of Germany's political spectrum, but equaling the AfD in Euroscepticism and pro-Russian attitudes, is a Sarah Wagenknecht alliance. Its political positions include opposition to green politics, cutting military aid to Ukraine, and a negotiated settlement to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Polling above the 5% threshold, the party may have a chance to enter the Bundestag.
My guest today is Dr. Łukasz Jasiński, a German analyst at the Polish Institute of International Affairs. Welcome to the programme.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Before we delve deeper into the German history and psychology, what's your evaluation of the recent crash of a German cargo aircraft in Lithuania? There's speculation about Russian involvement and all that sort of conspiracy theory. Does that sound accurate to you, or how would you react? I know it's an immediate reaction.
Well, regarding the crash itself, I think it's a little bit too early to speculate. We don't have many information, many evidences what actually happened. But the fact that there are some rumors about possible sabotage or Russian involvement, it shows that there is a change of that nowadays in Germany there is Russia is perceived in a little bit different way than 1 or 2 years ago. How
has that changed? What was the perception a couple of years ago as to today?
Before 2022, Russia was treated as a very difficult but still partner, especially in terms of economical cooperation, in terms of buying cheap fossil fuels, gas and Nord Stream 2, Nord Stream 1 and 2 that became a symbol of this. of this cooperation, quite egoistic from the Polish point of view, of course. And there was still a sense, or rather an attempt to believe in this concept that economical cooperation with Russia can help to somehow civilize this regime, to make it a little bit closer to Europe by this wide net of interdependencies and so on. Now it's changed. Russia is perceived by over half of German population as a direct threat, as threat for peace in Europe, and as a threat that will not just fade away in the near future, but remain with us for perhaps decades.
This change in policy, the German Eastern policy with regard to Russia seems to have collapsed, and as you say, it's got this. The threat of Russia is renewed. Is there a folk memory of Russian behaviour, certainly in the eastern part of Germany in 1944-45 and thereafter?
There is a.
Or is that an amnesia up to now?
Well, before 1989, in the former East Germany, German Democratic Republic, it was, of course, officially an amnesia. There was no other solution in this country under the helm of the SED, so Socialist Unity Party. Nowadays it's different. I would say that there is still a sense of threat towards Russia, a sense of trauma when it comes to how Red Army soldiers behaved in occupied Germany, women that were raped, factories that were destroyed or simply stolen or dismantled and brought somewhere to the USSR and so on. On the other hand, this sense of threat also causes a widespread opinion that actually you cannot win with Russia. That Russia is simply too big, too powerful, it's armed in nuclear weapons, and that at the end of the day, Germany should also be involved or sit at the table during the peace negotiations between Ukraine, Russia, Donald Trump, maybe.
That's one of the problem with Germany as a certainly a European power, that if it does nothing, it's criticised. If it does something, it's criticised because of its 20th century history. Is that something that Germany can ever reconcile?
Well, I would say that these historical arguments will play less and less role, especially in the near future. We are about 80 years after the end of the Second World War. Also, this society has completely changed. It's a multicultural society. It is estimated that about 25% of Germans have roots in very different countries. There are so-called Germans or persons with migration background. So these historical arguments will not play a very important role. Still, of course, Germany have their ambition to be this leading power of Europe, to give some new impulses, a new shape to the EU and its policies. And of course, there is a problem that sometimes Germany behave very egoistic, that they try to impose some decision on the neighboring countries. In some cases, like during the war in Ukraine, they seem to be rather reluctant. They seem to be very reactive, to wait for decisions made in Washington, D.C. And this was particularly the feature of Chancellor Scholz' attitude towards war in Ukraine. And at the end of the day, I would say it simply undermines Germany's image as one of the most important countries in EU, as a country that bears a special responsibility, that should be giving positive impulse, especially now when we are living in a period of multi-crisis, when there are this very different economical, political, social changes that have been going rapidly, and we simply need a stronger, when I say we, I mean, of course, the EU as whole, We simply need stronger, more decisive Germany and more decisive German government.
I mean, how is that, given the fact that it always seems to be in some sort of coalition, having these coalition governments, is that possible to evolve this sort of leadership that Germany thinks, or the rest of Europe perhaps thinks that Germany needs to formulate? It always seems to have coalitions with minor parties. How is current German politics shaping this idea of shaping Europe?
Well, in Germany, this tradition of building very different coalitions is very long, and it has its roots in the year 1949 in Konrad Adenauer's era, so the beginning of Federal Republic of Germany. The problem with coalitions is that the best example is the failure of this current governing coalitions of the SPD, Greens, and to this month also FDP, so the Liberals. The most important problem is that when we have a government based on two political parties, then there is still some kind of room for compromise, for making important decisions. When we have a government based on three or more parties, then making quick and far-reaching decisions is almost impossible. Because
can't please everybody.
That's right. You can please everybody. It requires long sets of negotiations. It's also a question about of the personality of the Chancellor. Is he a real leader or not? Chancellor Scholz occurred not to be a leader. What he performed is totally a weak leadership.
Is Germany looking at Scholz and comparing? Does Germany compare every current Chancellor to Angela Merkel? She's been this fixture of German policy for so long.
Well, Angela Merkel, Helmut Kohl, Konrad Adenauer, so the chancellors that used to be under offices for many years. In an example of Merkel and Kohl, there was 16 years, so quite a long time. On the other hand, I would say that Scholz is rather regarded as this episode chancellor, to be honest, because according to opinion polls, according to trends, everything shows that most probably in February he will end his mission as a chancellor, because SPD is almost bound to lose the elections. And by the way, Chancellor Scholz is still the candidate for the next term as a chancellor, although he's almost without any chances. So I think that the problem is that Scholz performed a weak leadership, that he didn't manage to communicate his decisions in the right way, that it was constantly going back and forth with every decision, especially with regard to Ukraine, to sending weapons to Ukraine. We remember this constant discussions about types of weapons, what the type of weapon is lethal weapon, what is not.
5,000 helmets.
This was the beginning. So this 5,000 helmets that was preposterous and severely damaged the image of Germany. Of course, now the situation is different. Germany are sending equipment quite a lot. They are helping Ukraine financially, but this is still this sense that they're simply not doing enough in comparison to their economy, to their GDP level, and so on.
What's the effect of the German economy seems to be going into the doldrums at the beginning? What's the effect on German politics of this economic miracle, this German powerhouse, suddenly slowing down?
Well, there is a sense in German society that some economical model is expiring, and that there is no clear alternative on the horizon.
Well, that Germany just can't afford the lifestyle that it's enjoyed for decades.
What is more, in case of Germany, it is not about enjoying a high level of life or a good standard of life. It is also a matter of international image of this country, and a sense of self-awareness. Throughout the decades, in Germany, such words as patriotism and so on were regarded as maybe too radical, maybe, to put it colloquially, fishy. So one of the reasons in which this new German one of the factors on which this new post-war German patriotism was built was this economical miracle from 1960s or from Adenauer era, and generally this sense that that German economy is developing, we enjoy high standard of living. Nowadays, these foundations of the Federal Republic of Germany are trembling quite vividly. There is no clear alternative. There is a sense that wide-range reforms, perhaps also controversial and unpopular, will be needed. And this, of course, also gives a perfect political fuel to the far right and far left.
Yes, two very extreme parties there with the on this count. A final question to you. On this self-awareness of Germany, has Germany reconciled the reunification now, or is it still split east-west in terms of its mentality?
I would say that this is to some extent a stereotype, that this mentality between Eastern and Western Germans that there's a world of difference between these two mentalities, isn't it? The most important problem is the widespread sense of being citizens of, so to speak, second category. This is still very vivid. You can feel it when you talk with people from Brandenburg, Thuringia, and so on, that this reunification did not bring automatically prosperity. And to make matters worse, in many public services, when we would examine this high-level officials, there are barely any people from Eastern lands.
Yes.
So for many people, inhabitants of this Eastern lands, like aforementioned Thuringia, Saxony, and so on, they feel that the reunification of Germany was more like colonization of this eastern part by those who are very arrogant sometimes, but came from Western.
Yes. Fascinating regionalism there. Dr. Jashinsky, thank you very much for coming on to our programme.
Thank you so much.
That's all for today. Join us next time for How We Got Here.